Jacob Media Partners invites you to spend an hour of your day celebrating your faith.
We acquire a fundamental right that can never be taken away from us. The right to hope.
In collaboration with the Archdiocese of Philadelphia and the Catholic business leaders of the Delaware Valley, including LaSalle University, First Trust Bank, and todayisagooddday.org. Learn from your leaders. Be inspired by your neighbors and find the power of grace in your life when you need it most. The spiritual Voices of Faith begins right now.
Today is a very special day for this edition of Voices of Faith with Jimmy Brown and Joe Kraus. We welcome everyone into Voices of Faith. Today we're going to pause and we're going to honor and we're going to talk about Sister Mary Scullion. Jimmy Brown sat down with Sister Mary Scullion of Project Home back in January of 2022. And then July 27th of 2023, Sister Mary Scullion announced that she would be retiring. So in her honor, we will replay the contents of that interview with Jimmy Brown when he sat down with Sister Mary. Just an incredible, incredible conversation. Before we get started, I did want to read to you a short quote from our buddy Jimmy Brown when he heard the news of Sister Mary stepping down from Project Home. Sister Mary is all about serving others, and the way she approaches her mission is remarkable, said Jimmy Brown. Born and raised in Philadelphia, she has the heart of a lion, and I believe she can go toe-to-toe with our Philly famous fictitious boxer, Rocky Balboa. And she'll do it any day of the week. The lady is famous for her kindness, but make no mistake about it, Sister Mary is tough, end quote, Jimmy Brown. So with that read for you, we get our show, Voices of Faith, underway with Jimmy Brown and Sister Mary Scullion.
Just to kind of bring the audience up to speed, we are blessed this afternoon to sit with Sister Mary Scullion at Project Home. And Sister, welcome to the program.
Thanks a lot, Jim. It's great to be with you and Joe.
Yeah, it's amazing. We have built a program over this is our third year, and each interview seems to build on the next, and I'm going to just jump right in. I've read a lot of material about the work that you do in the community, and one of the highlights that I read about was the concept that you were described as a woman of faith, action, and energy. Can you tell me a little bit about the faith, action, and energy piece of your life, your journey?
Well, in my life, one of the most important and greatest gifts is faith. And no matter what I do, or, faith would be, I would hope, would be central and very formative. It's, brought me to places I never thought I'd be. And faith has given me courage, not always answers, but courage. And I just consider faith one of the greatest gifts in my life.
It's interesting, Sister. I recently had a family member pass, my sister, and I thought to myself, what do people do without faith? I can't imagine the day-to-day operation that you run. How many employees do you have?
We have about 450.
That's enormous. And is it 900 units that you have now put in place?
We have over 900 units of housing, and we have a healthcare center where we actually do primary care, behavioral health, dental, and wellness services. And then we also have a technology center, the Honickman Learning Center, Comcast Technology Labs in North Central Philadelphia, which is a catalyst for education and employment opportunities, both for people experiencing homelessness and people in our community.
It's amazing the power of the folks that you have here in the building. Joe and I arrived a little early, and we were greeted by David Brown and some others, and it's outrageous. Tell us a little bit about the mantra, none of us are home until all of us are home, please.
None of us are home until all of us are home is like historical. None of us are free until all of us are free. I mean, we just put a spin on it about home because as others, we believe we're part of one human family.
Yes.
And what affects, as Dr. Martin Luther King stated, what affects one of us directly affects all of us indirectly. And homelessness impacts everyone in our community. And I think it's one of the most devastating things to be so marginalized and so disconnected from society when you're living on the street, that it not only is a horrible, devastating thing for people experiencing homelessness, but it's also a devastating thing for our society, because we actually need one another. And again, from our faith perspective, it's the kingdom of God.
Yes.
And Pedro Rupe, who was a former superior general for the Jesuits, I believe he's actually a saint. He's one of my favorite authors. I love him. He's been very formative in my spirituality, many of his sayings, his writings. But in the Eucharistic Congress, which was in Philadelphia in 1976,
right,
he was here.
Oh, my gosh.
And at that time, he said, when anyone is hungry anywhere in the world, the Eucharist is incomplete everywhere in the world.
Wow.
None of us are home until all of us are home.
It's amazing, just the energy. You walked into the room here this afternoon with our studio set up, and I could just feel a lift. That's just my impression. I want to take you back to something that happened not too long ago. You were named one of the most 100 influential people in the world. Some folks on that list were Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey. How did that recognition make you feel? Because I know it's been a long journey.
It has been a long journey, and obviously, it was so humbling, but I also recognize that recognition is a recognition of the Philadelphia community, a community of people from all walks of life, including those experiencing homelessness.
Right.
It's about Project Home is the power of hope, opportunity, compassion, and community. Yeah. And I think for our work, and it's our big work, there's people from all different faith perspectives, people that, don't resonate with any faith, that are part of our community. And that's what's really being recognized. It's not really an individual recognition. It's a recognition, I think, of the power of coming together, to make that vision. None of us are home until all of us are home a reality.
Yeah, it's God's work for sure. And can you give us a little bit of sense of history? It all began for you in 1976. That's, some time ago. Tell us about some of the folks that you've met on the street and the impact that they've had on you. It's wonderful when you have the president, and I saw some pictures around the office here, President of the United States visit you, some notable rock stars. But tell us about a couple of those guys and gals on the street.
I guess in the very early days, I was especially touched by the women who were living on the street. And in the earliest times, Georgiana was a woman who lived on the street with her shopping cart, and she lost 9 of her toes due to frostbite. But her faith was so strong. And in her shopping cart, she had her Bible. And she would, just often remind us how deeply her faith meant to her. Her shopping cart was set on fire, and she ended up in the hospital, and then ended up at Women of Hope. At that time, that's where I was working. And her spirit of resilience, of just, when I was with Georgiana, I felt so welcomed. I felt so much at home. She just had a presence of, I don't know, such hospitality.
Yeah,
it just was, amazing. So I guess I've learned from the men and women that I've been privileged to work with, the meaning of kinship. And Father Greg Boyle, I don't know if you've ever interviewed him from Homeboy Industries, but he often talks about kinship and how we are transformed by one another. So I'm a much different person today than I was when I first started that work, and that's through the relationships of many of the people that I've met and worked with, but especially the people that I've seen on the street.
And think about the courage of that woman, and just being able to bounce back from the fire. Some people could roll their eyes around that, but boy, oh boy, did it feel like she was in the state of grace? Like the way you just described her. We've heard this comment before, the state of grace. Was she one of those ladies that you found to be in the state of grace?
Absolutely. I think that the men and women that I've met on the street, I think, are the prophetic presence that calls us to be more human and more of a people of faith and risk and compassion and community. So what I will say is that my mother once told me that the story of the crucifixion around Lent and Easter time, and I would always say to her, why didn't the people intervene and take Jesus off the cross? Like, why didn't people do something? And I think when I see the crucifixion happening today in the lives of people living on the street, or abused kids, or forgotten people, marginalized people, that's Christ on the cross today.
Yeah.
That's calling us to take Jesus off the cross. Like, that's what it's, that's kind of what it's about. Like, it's not a theory. It's not an intellectual exercise. It's actually a call to the human family, to take care of one another. Thy kingdom come. That's what it's about.
It's all about.
Sister Mary Scullion is our special guest here on Voices of Faith. Sister Mary, before we take our first break, one last thought from you. Do you ever feel as though you find yourself in a battle against homelessness that you will never win?
Honestly, no. I mean, not that I'll win it. It's not about me. I've met too many people in my life that I believe are working miracles every day. It's not about a miracle. It's about all of us coming together as one, again, as I said, one human family, and making room for each other at the table. Like when we go to church, if everybody in church looks the same as we do, is that really the Eucharist, like the human family? Like, we have to welcome and make room for, bump into one another, a more diverse, inclusive community. And pretty soon, if we continue to do that, everybody will be in, right? We can't leave anybody outside. That's against or opposite of what our faith and what our faith calls us to. So I do believe that glory be to God, whose power working in us can do infinitely more than we can ask or imagine. And I do believe, not only do I believe we can, I believe we must end homelessness if we're truly living our faith.
Voices of Faith. Back in a moment.
Action News at 11 with Rick Williams. It's the team you trust to bring it all together. The stories that impact your community, a sports roundup for the locals, and the AccuWeather forecast you depend on. Action News at 11 with Rick Williams.
I'm back here on Voices of Faith as we come to you on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Still to come, Jimmy Brown sits down and goes one-on-one with Archbishop Nelson Perez and Dan Selecki with his Inspirational Minute. Jimmy, back to you.
Why, thank you, Joe. Sister Mary Scullion, we stopped with a wonderful piece around your mom and the question that you asked in reference to why didn't others stop the crucifixion? How old were you when that occurred?
I was in grade school. Grade
school.
Yeah.
But what a powerful question, and I love the way you drew that into, we all have to take action. Was your mom part of the birth of your faith, if you had to reference mentors and leadership in your early years?
Absolutely. My mother was a person of great faith. She was an immigrant along with my father. They both immigrated from Ireland to this country.
Wow.
And they met here, and, their life was a struggle. She cleaned houses when she came over. Her sister and brother helped her, set her up, here in the States. But she really nurtured my faith a great deal. So did my dad.
Yeah,
They both did.
And how about siblings? Are you come from a big family?
My mom and dad had big families, but they just had my sister and myself. So it's just the two of us.
Yeah, and the fact that mom and dad were a big part of the footprint that started your faith. Take me from there to that, let's say, the high school, college years. In terms of mentorship, someone that had an impact on you that was powerful.
So I've had, tremendous mentors throughout my life. And I think my mom, my dad, my sister, and my education, I went to St. Martin at Tours Grade School, Little Flower High School, then Temple and St. Joe's University. I was very much brought up in the white Catholic culture.
Sure.
And I learned a lot of religion, which helped form my faith. But I think as I developed as an adult, I learned a lot of faith outside my religion.
Of course, yeah.
From, the people that I work with, from people of different faiths, different cultures, different thinking. And it was the grace of faith that was enriched and grew so deeply from those experiences outside of maybe the traditional teachings and Catholic culture.
Well, it's interesting, even your observation about, as a child saying to your mom, why do folks let that happen? And then the next step is you're saying, you meet a person on the street, that's their crucifixion. What are you going to do about it? Mm-hmm. I have a stat here that blew me away. I read that more than 95% of the people who cycle through Project Home never return to life on the streets. And that's why I kept digging about the faith, your faith. Talk about that stat. That is remarkable.
Well, I mean, again, not really. I mean, you think about what do we all need? Mm-hmm. We need a safe place to call home.
Yes.
And when we have a safe place to call home in the context of a beloved community, which we strive to be here at Project Home, where all are welcome, all are valued, dignity is respected. When you find that place to call home, why would you want to leave it? Right. So I think in today's society, there's so much maybe individualism, where the sense of community is not as strong, and the social fabric is not as strong as maybe it once was.
Okay.
And I think that can leave a lot of people outside.
Right.
And our, role or job is to welcome each other home and to find a home within one another.
Right. And I feel like you're being humble with the hesitation on 95%. But listen, these are things that are vetted and talked about, and I'm just thrilled to death to be sitting here today having a conversation with someone who gets that piece of the puzzle. I also read another quote that blew me away. Today, in our world, it's so important, this is your quote, to find the things that feed our soul. You can't just drive the Mercedes-Benz and have $6 million in the bank. Talk a little bit about feeding the soul.
Okay. Well, I've been so lucky to have so many experiences that have fed my soul. And most recently, I'm going to talk about a book that Father Greg Boyle, I mentioned him from Homeboy Industries, that he just wrote. And it's just one of the most powerful books I've ever read.
Wow.
Tattoos on the Heart is his first book, and his book that he just published and I'm reading now is The Language or the Wholeness of Language, something like that. I'm not giving the right title, but it's something like that. But it's such an amazing book, and is the one that has coined the phrase like the kinship of God and the kinship of community. He works with felons in Los Angeles, gangs and things like that. And he just has an amazing way of connecting the gospel. He talks about his work, and I couldn't agree with him more, that his work has given him access to the gospel. That's how I feel. Being here at Project Home has given me more access to the gospel message or to the gospel itself.
Right.
He talks about not being bubble wrapped, like in our society, but to bumping into each other and the challenges and the problems and accepting people where they are and seeing the goodness, the unquenchable goodness in every single person. And the way he approaches his work and the way I've learned from so many of my colleagues here and people experiencing homeless is more of a trauma-informed approach to life, where you learn to accept people and not judge them, but be amazed at how they carry the burdens that they do.
Yeah, it's stunning to me. Matthew Kelly. Do you know the writer Matthew Kelly? Yeah, I'll introduce you to him off the air. But he talks about the concept of treat everyone with kindness, because most of the people you're going to meet today are carrying some kind of a heavy burden. Recently, I'd say the last 3 to 5 years, there's been an awful lot written about the concept of servant leadership. You have 450 people in the building. As we got in the elevator, said hello to a receptionist. I ran down the hall to use the restroom. It felt to me warm and welcoming here. Talk about the concept of servant leadership, not just for the person at the top of the rung, but people throughout the system, and how that's contributed to success here.
I think, part of the mission of Project Home is that we strive to be a beloved community where we see each other, really hear one another, understand the importance of one another's stories, how people have overcome some of the challenges, the spirit of recovery. So 12 steps is so important just to living, because we all are really in recovery.
No doubt.
From something,
Yeah.
So to have that humility to learn from one another, to listen to one another, to respect the fundamental dignity of every person, and to find a place at the table for all of us.
Yeah, it's stunning to me. We referenced a moment ago, or an early portion of our chat here, Martin Luther King. One of my favorite Martin Luther King quotes is that anyone can be great because anyone can serve. And in my homework around this Project Home, that seemed to be a common theme. I'm going to track back to servant leadership for a minute. Tell us a bit about where that sits in your priority rank and how you live your life serving others.
Well, I'm just going to say something like, I don't honestly see that I serve others. I feel like we serve one another. Mm-hmm. It's really a mutual give and take. So people have served me, if you so to speak, including people that have experienced homelessness, because they have taught me such invaluable lessons, and hopefully being just another human being with another human being, a true relationship is when everybody's changed.
Yeah.
So it's not about, you know what, I mean, I'm just trying to say, like, I don't want to be in a position I'm serving anybody. I'm really working with others to bring about the kingdom of God.
Which I love. And then the last piece of the puzzle that I kind of noticed in my homework around this interview was the random acts of kindness that not only you, but everyone on staff, and frankly, it appears everyone in the organization, whether they're being served or they're serving, not to beat that dead horse, but talk about random acts of kindness and the joy it brings to others.
Well, one of the things, I'll tell you a couple examples, is that when I first started, I was a caseworker at Mercy Hospice, and I worked with a woman on the street that people, she was stereotyped kind of as the duck lady. Oh. She had a Tourette's syndrome, and anyway, it just was sad that way. But Sylvia, which was her name, she was one of my heroes because she finally got a little room, just a room, with her Social Security check. We were able to get a little room. Soon after that, what we noticed is she brought in another woman from the street to share her room.
Wow.
I'll give you another example. A little boy in the neighborhood, somewhere in Philadelphia, he was picked by, some organization, which I don't even remember what the organization was, but like it was maybe Make-A-Wish, so he could, make a wish. And, many of the kids picked to go to Disney World or to, do something like that, for them or their families, get something for their, for their home or themselves. This kid picked, he wanted to be able to feed people who were experiencing homelessness on the street. So his Make-A-Wish was that someone provided him with the meals that he could take out and be a superhero.
Wow.
To the to people in need. And he spent a whole day here. He worked with David at Homespun, and he went down to the Hub of Hope and provided a beautiful meal to the people there. And that was his Make-A-Wish. Another amazing thing. David, who works at Homespun, he lived on the street for many years, and now he goes out on a Saturday and helps other people that are out there right now to try to, get them to come in or provide them a meal or do whatever's necessary. I've seen some truly amazing, acts of
kindness
and anonymously a lot of times.
It's a beautiful thing. Well, sister, we really appreciate the time you took today to share with our audience some of the leadership that you provide in the community. I know that's not your word, but boy, oh boy, I feel lifted just spending this time with you together. And thank you. Stay blessed and keep loving boldly.
Thank you, Jim and Joe. Thank you for, making this program possible. And many stories of faith. I can't wait to listen to some of your broadcasts.
Absolutely. We'll get you copies from past.
Thanks.
That's going to do it for this edition of Voices of Faith with Jimmy Brown and Joe Krause. Sister Mary Scullion will be serving in her current role, even though she's announced her resignation through December of 2024, which means you'll have 16 or 17 months to connect with the world's living angel. Until next time, on behalf of Archbishop Nelson Perez, on behalf of Brother James, on behalf of my partner, Jimmy Brown, and of course Dan Selecki, and our good friends from America Media, I'm Joe Krause. Believe in hope, everyone. See you next time.